What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I thought it would be cool to check out what Transformers I would love to see remade for the studio series. So right now that line has quite literally exploded the canon of the characters that we can expect from it. They're now branching out into the Gamerverse. There's even a concept art series, and some of the older Michael Bay characters would be almost perfect candidates for some of those sublines. So I've cherry picked around 13 to 14 entries. I thought it'd be kind of cool just to run through a few of them and get your guys' thoughts on them down in the comments below. So up first, we are starting off with the Scout class, and we have Revenge of the Fallen Ravage. Now personally, I think this is a character which is in a desperate need of an update, because I know technically we did see one included with the studio series Grindor, but that guy was tiny, and comparing it alongside the Bumblebee movie Ravage, we know Hasbro can do so much better. So here I have, I believe, the original Scout class version, which was incredible. I mean, this guy looks awesome, even being, I'd say, 15 years old, so detail wise this thing looks insane, but because it is quite old, unfortunately it's near enough impossible to track down. So I would love to see Hasbro either completely reapproach this design again for the core class, or simply just straight up reissue this original figure, because in terms of a beast mode, this guy looks sick, and it would even transform into the entry form which we did see in the Revenge of the Fallen movie. So yeah, we definitely need an update for this character sooner rather than later. Now, sticking with Scout class, next up we have a character which honestly I'm not quite sure ever would see a remake. This is the Revenge of the Fallen Insecticon. Now, we did see this guy on screen. He was the little bug that Sam Witwicky kind of squished, but this was such a banger. Personally, I would love to see this guy remade for studio series, because the design is so cool, and despite never transforming in the film, the Robot Mode 2 stacked up incredibly well alongside some of those other Michael Bay Decepticons. So maybe this could even technically class as being a concept art figure, which would maybe be the way that they would kind of get around the scale. You know, they could say that perhaps the Insecticons were meant to be much bigger in that Revenge of the Fallen movie, and you know, the original figure again was a banger, but much like Ravage, it has very quickly become super elusive to track down on the aftermarket. So yeah, personally I would love to see this guy remade for the line, but none more so than Revenge of the Fallen Stalker. Now, there is a bigger reason why I have decided to whack this guy on the list, but just as a standalone Scout class, this figure is simply amazing. So unfortunately, we never saw this incredible design in the Revenge of the Fallen movie. He was pretty much a concept art only series release, which is why I do think he would be perfect for the studio series line, but the robot design was just insane. I mean, for a Scout class, this guy looks brutal, and he would also transform into a pretty sick stealthy jet. So again, that is another reason why I would love to see him remade for studio series, and if we were to see this character remade in the future, then I would love to see them perhaps upscale this to a deluxe class, because the Scout class was awesome, but if they were to increase the budget, damn, I think they could make something maybe even better than what we saw way back in 2009. Now we are going to jump into the deluxe classes, and this is where things kind of get a little crazy, because this right here is Decepticon Dispensor, inspired by the original 2007 Transformers movie. Now this guy's design is simply nuts. You know, much like the Oreo bot, this thing kind of transformed into a vending machine and was always kind of nicknamed as the Mountain Dew bot. I would love to see this guy remade for so many reasons. So the first reason would be that unfortunately this was an Age of Extinction release, which I believe was based on an older 2007 deluxe. So unfortunately never officially transformed into a vending machine. Instead it transformed into a truck and only vaguely looked like a vending machine if you flipped it on its side. So that was a bit of a shame, and because he is a 2007 release, unfortunately his automorph gimmick meant that he had this massive stick hanging out of his back. Now whilst the gimmick was kind of cool, unfortunately in terms of display this guy sucked. So honestly I would love to see this guy remade. I think it would make for a banging deluxe class. For the next character, we are now jumping into 2009 with the Revenge of the Fallen movie. This is Deluxe Class Breakaway. Now, I think out of all of the characters on the list, this is the one which I think definitely will see an update eventually down the line, just because it is the perfect candidate for the Gamer Edition subline. So, this character unfortunately never made it into the actual Revenge of the Fallen movie itself, although he was a pretty big part of the Revenge of the Fallen video game, and this was only a deluxe class. I mean, can you guys imagine if they took this and upscaled scaled it at the very least into a Voyager, it would be a sick figure, because design-wise, this old 2009 Deluxe was pretty much bang on to the actual in-game character render. I mean, check out the details. Again, that head sculpt is so Michael Bay in its design. There's even a breathing mask, which I thought was awesome. He did kind of look like a moth. I mean, the wing design was definitely strange, but I think we're going to see this guy eventually. It really is just more of a case of when, and I'm hoping sooner rather than later. Now, two characters which I would love more than anything to see make it into the line would be Skids and Mudflap. Unfortunately, I think out of everything included in this list, these two are the least likely, and that does kind of suck, but if they ever do decide to approach these characters, personally, I would love to see the ice cream truck. I thought this was a banging alt mode for a Transformer. It had a really cool gimmick where you could literally split these two right down the middle. You would have Skids, you would have Mudflap. They could then transform into their own individual robot forms, which I thought was awesome. Unfortunately, I don't think it's likely we are going to see these guys anytime soon, but if we do, we definitely need some ice cream twins. And kind of throwing a wild card into the mix, we have the Age of Extinction Evasion Mode / High Octane Bumblebee. Now, out of all of the characters on the list, I'm kind of thinking maybe this is the one which will least likely ever be remade, because we did technically already see a Studio Series High Octane Bumblebee, and it was pretty much just this repacked as part of the buzzworthy Bumblebee subline. It was even given its own number to coincide with the rest of the Studio Series characters, so I'm hoping that won't prevent them ever actually remaking this guy, because the original 2014 Deluxe, whilst it wasn't terrible, unfortunately compared alongside some of the more recent Bumblebees, especially the Rise of the Beast version, I think they can do so much better. But the Camaro mode was insane. Much like a character which you guys will see later on, this is a design for Bumblebee which I wish kind of stuck as being his main look across the rest of the Michael Bay films, because personally I thought that black Camaro not only was sleek, but it was sick. Now, sticking with Age of Extinction, we are jumping into the Voyager class figures, and this here, I guess again, technically is a wild card. This is Dinobot SLO. Despite having a pretty banging Dinobot figure, unfortunately this guy never made it into the movie, and I believe there were even some character posters of him, kind of alluding that originally he was meant to be in the film, so kind of a shame that ultimately he was cut, but this is another perfect candidate for the Studio Series concept art subline. This Voyager release was pretty decent, but the Dinobot mode was kind of a little mushy in its design. Most of the pieces were made out of incredibly pliable PVC. It doesn't really stay together all that well. But before we get to Sludge, Hasbro, come on, you've got to give us some of the other Age of Extinction Dinobots before we see any concept art characters. But I think they are all likely candidates. This one, not quite sure, although it's one that I would definitely love to see make it into that concept art line. Sticking with some Age of Extinction Voyagers, next up we are getting down with the Hound. This is Transformers 4 Hound. Wow, this guy wasn't too accurate to the film, but was easily one of the best belters from that Age of Extinction movie. I mean, even by today's standards, I have an absolute blast messing around with this guy. Not only was he packing accessory wise, I think at the time he came with the most accessories that we had ever seen from a mainline Transformer. I would love to see a new Hound for the Studio Series line, and one specifically based on his Age of Extinction look, because that Oshkosh tactical defense truck just looked so sick on screen. I can't believe Hasbro haven't remade this guy yet, because as I said, easily one of the best standouts from the movie. Now, next up, again, is kind of a wild card. This is the Hunt for the Decepticons Highbrow. So, a character which unfortunately never even made a cameo as a background character in some of those Michael Bay movies, yet easily had one of the best robot designs I think we saw throughout that entire Hunt for the Decepticons toy line. Do you know what? I think Hasbro may do this guy, because the robot design to myself is very similar to Stratosphere from the Rise of the Beast movie. So, maybe if we ever do see that character, they can give us a simple retool and turn it here into Highbrow, because even the plane mode is kind of similar in its design, which, talking of, this guy transformed into a pretty awesome kind of World War I / World War II dual propellered plane, and it was easily one of the best alt modes that I have ever seen from a mainline Transformer. So another great candidate for the concept art series. Now, a big bulky Voyager, which honestly I wasn't too sure if I should include on this list, would be the Reveal the Shield Lugnut. And the main reason was because I'm not sure if this is technically considered as being a live action movie take on the character. I mean, that Reveal the Shield subline was a little strange. Again, kind of a great idea for maybe a concept art series, or at the very least, if we don't see this guy make it into the Studio Series, then I would love to see a legacy take on this character, especially as this guy did just win one of the most recent fan polls, even even the plane mode is top notch. Again, it's very World War I/World War II inspired. I believe it's pretty much a bomber, so we need a retake of this guy sooner rather than later, whether it be Legacy or Studio Series. And Hasbro, I'm going to ask you this once. Where is Optimus Prime? One figure we need updated more than anything would have to be the Evasion Mode Optimus Prime for so many reasons, but the biggest one would be this was an incredible design. They took that Michael Bay Optimus and merged it with the G1 style flat nose truck to create one of the best Optimus Primes ever, and that was reflected when it came around to this Voyager. This guy was a banger. I'd argue one of the best Voyager Optimus Prime figures to be released of all time. This guy, even by today's standards, is an absolute knockout, and this design, much like High Octane Bumblebee, is so good that I would have loved for this to have been his definitive look over the Western Star truck. This guy just looks brilliant. I mean, the robot design is so lean to match what we saw in the movie, and when it came around to the truck mode, it was simply incredible. Again, especially if you were able to track down this variant. The amount of detail that they kind of packed into the front of the cab looked sick, so I can almost guarantee you if you were to reapproach the Evasion Prime design, it would sell out just as well as we have been seeing from the Rise of the Beasts Optimus Prime. And saving what is undeniably the best for last, we have the Revenge of the Fallen Mindwipe. Now, I was super hesitant to actually include this guy on the list because I think even if they were to remake him, would it be as good as this original 2009 Voyager? Am I crazy in saying that he has main villain energy more so than the actual Fallen himself? And I think Mindwipe would have been an amazing Decepticon to have taken over from Megatron in that 2009 movie. You could have had him controlling the Decepticons, you then could have had Megatron maybe return to destroy Mindwipe. Another thing which makes this guy awesome is that when you transform him into his incredible stealth jet mode, he is even compatible with the Scout class Sky Stalker. It kind of attaches on the top like an actual drone, so this guy even had his own minions much like Soundwave and Laserbeak, so it really is just an incredible figure. This is one of the very few older Transformers where I think Hasbro could literally give us a straight up reissue in the Studio Series line and collectors wouldn't even question it twice. I would love to get your thoughts down below. Those are pretty much all of the characters which I would love to see remade that I wanted to show off for today's video. You know, there are so many more which I hope to kind of put together in a part 2 later down the line. Do you guys agree with the picks that I've chosen for this video? Are there characters out there which you guys think are even more deserving of an update than what has been shown in today's video? Be sure to sound off below, and I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. Until my next video, transform and roll out!